On. There we go. Good morning, everyone. It is 8:31 a.m. on this May 21st, 2024 City Council meeting. It is officially called to order. And as usual, we will, in fact, start with our chaplain prayer and pledges. And today we have the honor of having Chaplain Maeve Roday. Is it Rode or Roday? Reverend. Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States
of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag.
We pledge
Allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
If you'll remain standing while he does the prayer.
Let us pray. Embracing Father, you grace each of us with equal measure in your love. Let us learn to love our neighbors more deeply so that we can create a peaceful and just community. Inspire us to use creative energies to build the structures we need to overcome the obstacles of intolerance and indifference. May Jesus provide us the example needed and send the Spirit to warm our hearts for the journey. Amen.
Amen. Yeah, exactly. We will now go into our public comment portion of the agenda. Issues or concerns not on the regular agenda may be raised by the public at this time. Citizens should speak from the podium, address all comments to the dais, begin by stating their name and address or single-member district number, and limit their remarks to less than 3 minutes. Council has no obligation to respond to comments or questions from the public. Any response from a member of the City Council to non-agenda comments is limited to a statement of specific factual information, recitation of existing policy, or directing staff to place a subject on a future agenda. I will now take, please come forward if you have public comment.
Give me one more second. I've got a lot of books. I think our picture flipper is working this morning. Okay. My name is Jackie Chestnut. I'm a local licensed engineer in the state of Texas. I live out in Knickerbocker, and I'm going to talk about 2 issues this morning. The first issue I'm going to ask for is an agenda item to discuss the conditions in the city of San Angelo with many, many items. Okay, then I'm going to talk about trauma, elder abuse, and financial exploitation, which I will continue to talk about. The laws that were passed in 21 related to this issue in this county in September, or in this state in September of 21. And I have been subjected to elder abuse and financial exploitation in this town, in this county now for 4 years. I've had quite enough of it. And this past week, I witnessed the items stolen from my home 4 years ago in my office that was raided and robbed here in the city, sold at the estate sale of Donna Robinson, the real ex-wife of my husband of 27 years. Sold off, reported to the police and the sheriffs. Nobody did anything, of course, FBI, everybody else, as I watched my items from my home sold off. Jewelry, precious metals, and things stolen. All reported years ago when they were done. Nobody did anything. That's financial abuse and elder exploitation, and I had to witness this, and I have all the evidence from it, and I'm sick of it. And here are all the laws that say this is not supposed to happen. And here are all the pictures of all the things that were stolen, reported to the police and the sheriff, and I was ignored. Again, as I have been for all these years, in this town, in this county, which I have resided and done business. Next item. I, as an engineer, work with codes, rules, and regulations like building codes, International building codes are done for building safety, fire prevention, and develop codes used to construct residential and commercial buildings, including homes and schools, in most cities and counties that adopt these codes so we live safely, and I'm tasked with those things. The picture you see up here is Westlake Hardware, where we have termites, we have fire hazards, and I called the owner of the business, Miss Mary Jane Stedman, to report this because I'm sick of this, and as a public person, I should not go into facilities like this where my life is at risk by fire and termites being taken back home to my home, and she told me to just live with it. No, this is not acceptable in a community, nor to me or anybody else, and especially the elder, and then we'll get into ADA compliance. Doesn't look very ADA compliant. Let's flip through some other pictures. In front of your business, Miss Gunter, is a sheep that I don't know what it's about, that is destroyed, abused, looks like hell, has holes in the top of it, and that's sitting out in the sidewalk, actually. And I don't know what it's doing there, and I don't know what all these sheep are about anymore. I used to know when I raised sheep and goats and what they were about. Now they're just things sitting around.
Thank you very much. Any further public comment from anyone here today?
Hi, my name's Katrina Feuerstein. Everybody calls me Kat. I live at 118 Polk Street here in San Angelo. My issue today has to deal with my street. Okay, over there the sewer lines are horrible and they keep breaking down, and the water lines, something's wrong with the water lines. Every one of my neighbors, there's 4 houses on there and one on the corner of Polk and Colorado. Okay, everybody's water smells like natural gas when you turn it on and start running it. Shower, bathroom sink, in your kitchen, it just smells like natural gas. I'm about to see if I can take a lighter to it and light it. Okay, 4 times this has happened over the last, I'm going to say 3 months. Water and sewer have been over there, and street and bridge. They've dug up the easement twice. They've dug up the street twice, and it took me almost a week to get them to fix the sinkhole that they created right in front of my house. From the last time they dug up, it took me almost a week. She said she was waiting on materials. I said, it's street and bridge. Don't tell me you don't have asphalt. I mean, out of materials, it's dirt and asphalt, literally. Well, since they patched this yesterday, now this morning I have way reduced water pressure. It smells more like gas. My bathtub is backing up, and my toilet doesn't flush right. My toilet's starting to back up. With me, my neighbor Steve and Kathy, my neighbor Joe Hernandez, I just want to know who we need to actually speak to get a resolution to it, to feel safe in our homes and, have the water and not have the gas. And I just need to know who to speak to. This is 4 times they've been over there. 4 times. It's getting a little ridiculous.
Ma'am, give me your address again, please.
118 Polk, P-O-L-K.
The person to talk to is Executive Director of Public Works, Shane Kelton.
Okay.
I'll make sure that he contacts you and that we get that.
Absolutely.
looked at, okay.
My name's Kat, as I said, K-A-T. My number is 706.
Well, let me get it afterwards.
Oh, okay.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
The sewer gas issue, you can smell when you open your car door on the whole street. The sewer gas issue is all over this town.
Thank you, Jackie.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. My name is Jay Howard. I'm with Texas Disposal Systems at 720 Buchanan. As I've mentioned before, our company is a family of businesses that started here in San Angelo back in the 1950s when the Gregory family started Acme Iron and Metal, which we still own and operate about 1.5 miles north of here, as well as our Texas Disposal Systems facilities there. I am speaking this morning in regard to the City Solid Waste Services contract. The contract with Republic Services was signed 10 years ago as a 10-year contract, which was worth about $125 million. The term of that contract is going to be up here in a couple of months. I believe a couple of months. It's probably too late for the city to conduct an RFP process at this point from a timing perspective. But my understanding is that there are options in the contract for either a 2-year renewal of that contract or an 8-year renewal of that contract. Of course, an 8-year renewal contract would be another $100 million green light on a contract that hasn't been looked at in about 10 years. So as a service provider in that industry, we're asking for an opportunity in the future to bid on those services. So we would ask the city to consider, rather than an 8-year renewal term, a 2-year renewal term, which would allow the city the opportunity to put together and conduct an RFP process and ensure that the value that the city's getting from such a utility meets all the city's expectations for its residents and businesses. It may be that you conduct such a process and find that the direction you are in right now is exactly where you want to be. You might find that there are services and different options that are not currently on the table that might be worth the city considering that'd be value to the city. So we just ask for the opportunity in the near rather than far future to have an opportunity to show what we're able to offer. So thank you again for your time. Y'all have a good morning.
Thank you for coming forward. Further public comment? Seeing no one else coming forward, we will move on our agenda today, which takes us to our consent agenda. I'm going to start by saying that I'd like to pull items F and G. Larry, do you have any other items you'd like to pull? No, ma'am. Karen? No, ma'am. Lucy? No, ma'am. Harry?
No, ma'am.
Tom?
Nothing to pull.
Tommy? No, ma'am. Then may I have a motion for approval for the items A, B, C, D, E, and H?
So moved.
Public comment on the consent agenda items, please. Seeing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The consent agenda, with the exception of F and G, have been approved 7-0. We will go into item F, consider ratifying a resolution by COSA DC authorizing the board president to negotiate and execute an economic development incentive agreement with Allen's Transport USA Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $150,000 for a project authorized under Chapters 501 and 505 of the Texas Development Corporation Act, necessary to promote economic development and expand business enterprises which create or retain primary jobs, and recommending approval by City Council. Michael?
Good morning, Mayor. Michael Dane, Interim Economic Development Director. Would you like an overview and
Yes.
a little background on this?
Yes, please.
Michael Looney has worked on this, and he'll go over it with us.
Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm Michael Looney. I'm the VP of Economic Development with the San Angelo Chamber of Commerce, working in concert with the COSA DC team and their board of directors. What we're calling Project OTR2 is Allen's Transport. This is a company based out of Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. They were recruited to San Angelo over about a 5-year period, starting in 2019. And last year they went forward and purchased a facility. It is a approximately a 25,000 square foot facility on Gas Plant Road over by where the old next tier Frank Poole campus is located. They're doing very well. One of their primary sources of industry service is working with a company called LSPI. Interestingly enough, you're starting to see LSPI chemical signs and billboards throughout the region and in San Angelo. Allen's Transport is one of the exclusive hazmat haulers for this product, and this product is made down in Bryan. This is a company that we have developed a very good relationship with. They have an excellent safety record, and they continue to grow. And so why we like Allen's is because it's a very well-managed, well-run company that is taking advantage of our strategic position in Texas. And as we all know, we have a lot of logistics and supply chain growth that is beginning to manifest itself here in our part of Central Texas. And they wanted to be a part of it. They are extremely familiar with the Ports to Plains corridor because that acts as one of their main conduit connectors between their operations in Alberta and in Texas, all the way along that corridor. So they're very familiar with it. And when we began the discussions with them several years ago, that was one of the key indicators, and that was one of the key topics of discussion. So we had that in common. This company continues to grow. This company continues to hire. They, as you see on your cut sheet, they have an average salary of $95,000 a year plus benefits. The Fandrick family takes exquisite care of their employees. They have 140 employees throughout the United States and Canada, so they're a growing company. If there are any questions that you have, I'm happy to answer them, but that gives you a little bit of an overview. They currently have 5.
Okay.
Their target is 12. And so right now they're in the process of vetting out several candidates that they've gotten applications from. So it's going to mostly drivers. They are going to hire a diesel mechanic, and then a person who is going to handle the transloading of the chemical from truck to tank, tank to truck. The chemical that they haul, even though it is technically hazmat, it's actually like a Teflon material that is used to speed up and make more efficient the transference of oil through interregional pipelines. You wouldn't want to drink it, but it's not going to burn through metal or anything like that. It actually makes things work better. So, and LSPI is one of the only companies in the world that makes this chemical.
Is that out of St. Louis?
Close. They do some transloading in St. Louis, and that would have been the Celtichem relationship, but they actually manufacture it in Bryan. They have a 500,000 square foot facility in Bryan. And when we talked to them in 2018, we thought it'd be a good idea to talk about having a division of that company up here, because it's just a great company. And they said, we're not going to move the factory, we're not going to expand it, because it's been built upon since 1970. But they did put us in touch with their heavy haul branch, their private contractor, which is Allen's Transport, and here we are. So
they have 5 employees now. They're going to hire 12, or there's going to be a total
going to
of
go up to 12.
So 7 new employees.
Yeah, 7 new.
Okay.
Yep.
That's the question. Other questions for Michael Looney? Larry?
There's a significant capital investment they're making. Would you want to talk about that?
There is. What they've been doing is the current cap investment is approximately $1.5 million. What they've done is they have taken what is a large hangar-type building on Gas Plant Road that was originally occupied by a company called Detmar Transportation, which hauled frac sand. The interior of it was basically just open warehouse. They have built an entire tank farm inside of the facility to create as much climate control as possible. They brought their tanks in from Edmonton. They tried to buy their tanks, and we're talking very, very large tanks, from local sources. But I guess it's kind of a good problem to have because none of the local manufacturers could get to them for 6 months. That's how backlogged they are. And that speaks to a lot of the workforce issues we've had and the fact that during COVID, a lot of our oil field services companies spread out and started looking for contracts throughout the entire North and South America. So that's kind of got them behind, but they had to bring these in from Edmonton, which they did. They've got them all set up right now. There's a total of 9 tanks. They have more on the way. And Larry, to your point, it is a very substantial investment in San Angelo. I want to also add that Allen's Transport likes San Angelo for logistic reasons. It's a good, strong location for them, but they could have gone anywhere. And they just really like San Angelo and the way they've been treated by the city, the way they've been treated by the county, and just the general entrepreneurial spirit that they feel here. And so that helped a lot because we were selling a good product and they like it. So anyway, I kind of over-answered your question as I'm apt to do, but it's exciting to talk about because it's nice to have companies that become enthusiastic ambassadors of our community. And they're new here.
Any other questions or comments for Michael? Thank you very much.
All right, you're welcome.
May I?
Mayor, I'd make a motion we approve.
Thank you. Here, thank you, Tommy. second by Larry. Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor of approving item F, please say aye.
Aye.
With none opposed, the motion passes 7-0. We will go to item G, consider approving a resolution pursuant to Texas Enterprise Zone Act, Chapter 2303, Texas Government Code, nominating Ethicon Incorporated to the Office of the Governor Economic Development and Tourism through the Economic Development Bank as an enterprise project. Michael, you're on.
Thank you, Mayor. Michael Dane, Interim Economic Development Director. This action is a box to check. Ethicon's making application to the state for a partial rebate of sales taxes that they've collected and remitted to the state. It has no fiscal impact to the city, but it could entitle them, if they get all the boxes checked and they are a successful applicant, they could receive a rebate of some of the sales taxes, the state portion, sales taxes that they've collected and remitted to the state.
So it won't impact our sales tax?
No, ma'am. And the benefit to the city is that as their costs come down for doing business in San Angelo, it ties them tighter to the community, makes San Angelo a more profitable place to do business. So that's the benefit to us. For a little bit of paperwork shuffle, we help them lower their costs.
Questions or comments for Michael on this item? Yes, Tommy?
Michael, would you have any idea what kind of economic impact Ethicon currently has or maybe has had in the past on the community?
No, sir, I don't have any current information. I know that it's been significant in the past, and of course, they're prized locally for paying above average to that
wages
workforce.
Yeah, okay. Mayor, I'd move approval of this item as well.
Wait a minute, Tom, go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
So with the previous election and some legislation, we did remove Ethicon off the tax roll base, correct, as far as property tax?
Tina would have to help us. There was some state-level activity that affected the property tax impact that Ethicon has, and I believe it was a reduction.
Right.
But if you want some more detail, we'll need to get her up here to help with
She's
that.
coming.
She's on her way.
The woman with all the answers.
One of my many security
Always stops
blankets.
at finance. Every good thing stops at finance.
Tina Dersky, Director of Finance. I spoke with Tyler Johnson at the Appraisal District. He's our chief appraiser about this a couple weeks ago. There is new legislation that went into effect for this tax year that affects the property tax that we will receive from Ethicon. We no longer have an ability to tax personal property that is involved with making medical equipment. So that's the basic gist of the law. And Tyler expected that to remove about $90 to $100 million off of our tax valuations.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
So that's just property tax, not sales tax as well?
Just property tax, and that, again, that's their valuations. Of course, it's not the actual amount that they pay, but based on the rate, that amount is what will be taken off the rolls.
Okay, thank you. Further comments or questions for Michael?
Mayor, I'd like to emphasize that last change we discussed was not an action taken by this board or Coastal DC board. That was an action taken at the state level.
Yeah. There's several other issues with state sales tax that we'll see this year. All right, with that, Tommy was making a motion for approval.
I move we approve as
And may I have a
presented.
second?
I'll second.
A second by Tom. Any public comment on this item? With that, we'll take a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. We will now move into our regular agenda, and today we are going to welcome Monica Ramos, who is our DSA Director. Come on up.
Good morning, Mayor. Good morning, Council. Monica Ramos, Executive Director, excuse me, Executive Director of Downtown San Angelo, Inc. Downtown San Angelo is a 501c3 nonprofit organization who is dedicated to the revitalization of downtown San Angelo. What is revitalization? In simple terms, it means that we are working towards keeping the heart of our city alive, keeping this heart beating, and we follow the Main Street 4-point approach. We're happy to be a part of this Main Street program because we can follow this approach in our everyday tasks of helping revitalize our downtown by organization, promotion, design, and economic vitality. We get to share information with other Main Street cities as well and learn from them, and they can also learn from us. I think it's worth noting that last year in 2023, American Express held a backing small business grant, and they awarded $5,000 to 350 cities. One of the eligibility requirements was to be a part of a Main Street city. And San Angelo being a part of a Main Street city, we did have a small business apply for this grant, and San Angelo Studios was awarded the Backing Small Business Grant. So that was something that's very notable and really says a lot about us having our tie to Main Street and its importance and how it can help our community. Being a part of this Main Street program, we also submit rigorous reports quarterly to the Main Street program. And so one of those reports is our reinvestment report, which is a compilation of any new construction, any properties sold, and the top section here on the left shows our year end for 2023. I believe the last report that I've presented to City Council was back in September, so I wanted to show that year end. And the total reinvestment was $12,674,852. Although we see this decline on the chart, I don't think that that's going to stay down. I believe that that has potential to increase because already in Q1 for 2024 and January through March, we've already seen 18 new construction and 4 properties sold. And the total reinvestment at $4 million. And so the way that I collect this data is by using deed transfer reports and permit reports to help me compile the information for our Main Street district. And feel free to stop me if you have any questions. I'm just going to continue going on. The mixed beverage and sales report, this is a combined report of the mixed beverage and the sales tax report compiled together. And what we see here is the comparison of 2023 versus 2022. Overall, San Angelo has an increase, which is very positive. Slight decreases for Central Business District and Main Street, but I did take a glance at where we're looking at for this 2024 quarter, and it looks like we're going to see that rise and increase, and hopefully my next report will have some positive numbers there. But again, that's just a slight decrease. I don't think that that's much concern. And as far as being able to determine where those numbers come from, it is difficult. I did try to look and compare, but because it is sales tax and mixed beverage combined together, it's difficult to see where the slight decreases originate from. Our 2024 Southern Tiers projects, primarily the southern section of the Tiers boundary is downtown. And I'll just give a little input about the Tiers program. This is the grant funding program available here locally to property owners within the Tiers boundaries. You can apply for up to $75,000 for facade improvements, landscaping, secondary egress, smoke alarm, fire sprinkler system. And here we have 5 projects that have been approved for this year with a total of $302,462. I believe that this is a really great program because, again, it's the only local grant funding that is available that can get you up to $75,000. And you can see that each of these properties have taken advantage, whether it be for a safety feature like 40 West Tuig for the elevator, or Plateau Brewery, who just needs to simply expand their small location and bring it outdoors and provide shade in this hot West Texas heat. There are other properties as well that may seem a bit blighted. 202 Martin Luther King is a good example of that, where this grant program can really help improve the aesthetics of this property, but then also help improve the area and neighborhood around it. Downtown San Angelo is now available as the drop-off location for Tiers applicant packages. So anyone applying for Tiers, whether you're a property owner applying from the north or the south, can come and visit our office at 24 West Concho Avenue. We're also happy to print the application for you and guide you through the documentation that you need for the application. anything in more depth, I suggest reaching out to the ASU SBDC as their free service, but we'll help in any way that we can. And so far, we have had 20 consultations this year, whether it be by phone call or in-person visits to the office regarding the TIERS program. And we're also helping the city as well with the marketing aspects. We've kind of started off with the simpler parts of marketing, but we're going to get into more detail with a solid plan of how we can really market and reach the northern area, because there's a lot of funding that's available in the north. The south is more competitive for TIERS funding, and so we really want to get the word out to the northern area. And so downtown San Angelo, although we're here for primarily downtown, we're here to help as well with this TIERS program that the city has initiated. Always my favorite report is the new businesses that have popped up within downtown, and we have seen 6 so far that I am aware of. The Angora Hotel has completed its construction. It is now open for business. Mandela Den, Studio B Texas, Sugar High Bake Shop, La Sirena, which is a new cocktail bar that will be inside of Concho Crossings on 113 East Concho Avenue, and then Morning J, a antique retail store. So already looking great for the beginning of the year. The chart here does show that we've had an increase in new businesses, a slight drop in 22, however, back up in 23, and the average net gain that we see is 9 on average of new businesses that come into downtown each year. A little bit more about our organization, about downtown San Angelo and what we do. This is, you see a long list. However, of course, most of it you see here is sheep, but this is really a portion of our promotional part of the Main Street program with our marketing and promotions. And we work really hard to be able to showcase our downtown and invite visitors, make this a better attraction for people to come to downtown and really support our neighborhood. We have our historic downtown magazine that is produced biannually by Media Advantage. The latest issue is a 2-sided cover of an issue, and you can find that in our office, any local restaurant within our downtown, the hospitals, some of the banks have copies of the magazine. It's a great way to learn what's going on in downtown, but as well as the history. Each topic main story highlight is about a historic feature of our downtown San Angelo and its history. We also have our website, downtownsanangelo.com, where you can see a copy of our newsletter, and that's more primarily based on our everyday tasks within our office, any updates that have to do with the work that we're doing. There's also a property search tab that I'm not sure that many are aware of, but you can click on this link and it links you to texasdowntowntx.org. This was something that the Main Street program helped us create, and it's a way to look up any properties that are for sale or lease that we've had permission to post on this site. We are not the realtors per se, but we can, if someone comes to our office or gives us a phone call and asks us about a property on this site, we can at least connect that individual to the person to speak to, whether it's the property owner or the proper realtor regarding the property. We do want to work towards filling any vacancies that we may have. Our Sheep Spectacular, this is a program that started back in 2007 as a fundraising effort. It does pay tribute to the original Miss Wool pageant and our sheep and wool industry and our heritage. And it started out with 10 sheep, and now we have 165 sheep that have been sponsored over the course of time. And we're happy to host sheep unveilings to help debut these sheep because they are not only significant to the sponsor but to San Angelo. We always have visitors from ASU, families from ASU, Goodfellow Air Force Base, travelers that come by, and they ask why the sheep, and they're always interested in trying to take photographs with all the sheep. And with the sheep having each their own unique design, it usually has a representative design of San Angelo and our West Texas heritage. This list here of the 17 sheep are 17 sheep that are currently in progress. So we'll see most of these sheep debuted soon. The 4 for Congressman August Pfluger, we just had a sheep unveiling for him yesterday, so his sheep has already been debuted. La Esperanza Clinic West, as well as Texas Trust Credit Union's second sheep that they have on display. Our community events are important to the organization, but definitely for our downtown community. When we host events like Brews, Use, and Barbecue, we bring so many visitors, not only just locally or within our Concho Valley, but the teams that come out to participate. This year we had 40 teams that came out to compete for best brisket, ribs, and lamb. We had the World Championship Lamb Cook-Off. This is an opportunity for vendors as well to showcase their goods and services. We had 53 vendors, and we had local entertainment, all for the enjoyment of our community, but then also visitors alike, because when these teams come and travel, they bring their RVs, they bring their families, and so the families that are here are going to traverse to our downtown and go enjoy our restaurants and our shopping and entertainment scenes. So we're happy to continue the Brews, Use, and Barbecue event every year in March. The Star Spangled Banner concert and fireworks show will be held this year again on July 3rd. This is another event that brings the community together. It is a free event, just like Brews, Use, and Barbecue, free admission to come out and spectate and enjoy the fireworks show. Last year's show was bigger than ever, and we hope to continue that and continue to make a bigger, longer fireworks show, because after all, I think that's what everyone really goes out for on Independence Day, is to see the fireworks. The downtown stroll is centered around holidays this year. We've kind of worked through changing some of the aspects of the stroll. It's been around for many, many years. It started as an art walk and then transformed into the stroll so that it could include businesses to be able to showcase their services. And so this most recent stroll that we hosted was Mother's Day Mosey, and we held this event last year as well, and it was a wonderful, beautiful event because the moms got a day to relax and come out and shop and enjoy discounts and some refreshments as well. So we'll continue with the stroll through the year, with our Halloween stroll being next, and then the Sheep on the Shelf stroll in December. Any of this information, by the way, can be found on our website and through our social media outlets. Something new being brought to the table by Downtown San Angelo is a mini Miss Wool pageant. So not completely new. It does pay homage to the original Miss Wool pageant. One of our board members, she's actually here today, Andy Markey, brought this thought up of, let's host another Miss Wool pageant, but for little girls. We thought, yeah, that would be nice. Let's do that. So we'll really push this event as we get closer to the fall, but this event will be on November 9th, the evening of November 9th, and November 8th will be an opening, opening reception for the families and anyone else to come out, view educational displays, enjoy some food and drink and entertainment the day before the pageant. And we're really excited about this. I do have someone that is helping me that has extreme knowledge, expert knowledge with pageants. Her name is Morgan Yonka. She actually participated in pageants as a little girl, and to this day she judges pageants. So she's my guide on organizing the actual pageant portion of this event. But we're really happy to bring this to the table and, again, pay tribute to the original Miss Wool pageant and be able to share that history on the opening reception night. As far as outreach for our organization, we've had several speaking engagements where we've spoke to the East Side Lions Club, the Downtown Lions Club, the Women's Philanthropic Organization as well. We're happy to do so because we do want to share the good work of our organization, but as well as the good news about what's happening downtown, just like I am today with the new businesses and the reinvestment report, sharing all the good things that are happening. We are extremely happy about this next item, the Texas Main Street Retreat. You keep hearing me talk about Main Street, but it is an integral program for the success of what we do and for our downtown. We were asked by the Texas Main Street Coordinator to host this year's Main Street Retreat. Each year this retreat is held in other cities. I went a couple of years ago to Victoria, Texas. We visited their downtown, and it was a 4-day workshop event. And so we're expecting about 70 of these 85 Main Street cities to come to San Angelo, and we're all ready to welcome them. We have several sponsors on board that have helped with venue spaces, meals for lunch and dinner, as well as activities, creating a special welcoming for our visitors that are coming to San Angelo. I know that most Main Street cities do look to San Angelo for information, and they want to emulate what we're doing. So I'm happy that they get to come to us and we can share our stories with them and have some trade-offs during the workshop sessions. And again, especially thankful to all the sponsors. I know the City Development Corporation was a big sponsor in Texas Bank, so we're very, very thankful for that assistance because, again, we're able to create this atmosphere to welcome the guests, and I can show off our downtown. I'll have an opportunity to do a walking tour so that we can walk through and view all the great aspects of our downtown. And then, of course, again, I mentioned the Star Spangled Banner concert and fireworks. Just want to make sure that everyone saves the date. I know many people travel out of town, but it really is worth staying here in San Angelo, going to the Bill Ayler Memorial River Stage, and viewing this fireworks show because local entertainment is there to perform, to celebrate Independence Day, but also be able to bring this event to our community. It almost once died and went away, and we were able to pick it up and keep it going. So we're glad that we were able to keep this tradition alive. And just to end this report, I just want to thank our board members and all of our volunteers of the organization because they are very, very important in the success of our events and any major activities that we have to tackle. There are only 2 of us in the office, so our board members and volunteers really help make a difference. People always talk about, well, we need more to do in San Angelo or more kids' activities or this or that, and that's really great. Yes, maybe we do, but what are you doing physically to help make that happen? And so these board members and volunteers, I really thank them for stepping up and being present to help make things happen. Any questions?
Questions or comments for Monica today? Thank you.
Thank
Job
you.
well done. Item B is discussion and possible action on prioritized listing of funding requests for animal services.
Morning. Morgan Chegwin, Assistant Director of Neighborhood and Family Services. What we wanted to focus on this morning was talking about the make ready of the temporary facility. Of course, this council funded $1.6 million in short-term debt for shelter improvements to the existing facility on Highway 67, and that's going to include a large portion of the building being uninhabitable for animals and staff. So we are, of course, demoing our entire kennel room, the biggest square footage of the building, 120 kennels or about 130 dogs will be displaced from that, while we tear down all the kennels that so that we can get to the plumbing, repair all of that, replace the HVAC for the whole building, including a new ventilation system for the air quality out there, as well as the phase 2 of the building will displace an additional 60 dogs. So displacing 130 dogs and then later another 60 dogs and 20-ish cats will require standing up a temporary facility. And so Bob Salas and Al Torres have been working on what can be done for that and have identified an additional cost in addition to the existing funding for the project. And I will let them speak to the details of what's going to be necessary to stand up that temporary facility.
Let's talk about time frame, because we've been talking about this for quite a while. We would have expected some progress to be made on the improvements. So where are we and what are we looking at?
I believe Al has that information as well.
Good morning, Al Torres, Construction Management. We have run into some issues with, there's not enough electrical service for what we're planning to do. And also there was some issues about the fire alarm. So the engineering portion of it kind of came to a stop while we figured that out. We've got it figured out. The electrical portion, we have no choice, but the fire alarm, we're going to work with the fire marshal to get that done. So we're hoping in about another month or so, we'll be done with the construction documents and we can move forward with bidding and get that started before sometime
So
during the
we
summer.
don't even have construction documents at this point?
Not completed, no. They're quite a ways done, but they're not 100%. So, but we're getting there. So on the temporary shelter, like Morgan said, from the beginning of the project, she's been tackling what am I going to do with all these dogs. We originally talked about trying to get, excuse me, the contractor to phase the work in the shelter part, but that was a logistical nightmare. The contractor said he just really no way he could do that. So she and Bob found a place where they could house the temporary animals.
Because didn't we have that approved some time ago where we were going to take these temporary animals?
They went to the planning commission to get a conditional use just so that they were allowed to do that use at that building. But now they've got to take the building and convert it to a temporary shelter. So the big issue, of course, is trench drains, getting it to where you can put all the kennels in, get it washed down. They're looking at it for a period of up to a year. Shouldn't take that long, but just in case.
Just to get the temporary kennels together?
Correct.
So you're not going to do any work on the facility until we have this temporary housing for the animals done?
There's a lot of work that can be done before they do the kennel part, because the entire building over there is going to be done. So they can do all of the office areas. They can do most of it. They can even start, and the temporary kennel shouldn't take that long because that's not having to go through all the engineering process. What we're doing, the issue on the temporary kennel is if we went in there and did cut trench drains, just like we're doing at the other facility, to cut new trench drains in and saw cut the concrete, pour new concrete, that would be a lot more expensive than what we've come up with, and it would take a lot more time. What we're doing instead is we're going to use concrete block to elevate platforms, place the trench drains in those platforms so that we can put the kennels on top of that. It's a fairly quick, easy way to do it. It's not a permanent solution, but it's good solid construction and it'll last for a while. So the advantage is that once they're done, somebody else that wants to use that building for something else, they can come in and fairly easily remove all that. If we saw cut the concrete and put permanent trench drains in there, then you're kind of limiting what the building can be used for. Plus, it would be a lot more expensive. Doing it this way, it's going to be a lot faster. I think in a couple of months, 3 months, we could have that done in time for the work and the new one to be. I think timing should work out.
So, questions or comments from council at this point?
I have a question, Mayor.
Yes, go ahead, Tommy.
I haven't heard an ask yet, or maybe I missed it. What is the ask?
The dollar
today?
amount? We have estimated $120,000 for the temporary shelter. Hopefully that's a little high, but we want to make sure we've got it all covered. And I haven't talked to Morgan about this, but I figured an 8-inch drain, which is what we're doing and what we have at the other facility. If we cut it down to a 6-inch drain, a 4-inch drain, we could possibly lower that a little bit, but I don't know if that would serve her needs. The number I came up with is actually 100,000. I think the other 20 was for the kennels themselves. But that's the dollar amount.
Karen?
Would you mind just quickly reviewing for us the calendar of events so we kind of have it fixed in our mind? So start date on the temporary, start date on the existing occupancy timeline, those sorts of things.
From here out or backwards?
Starting from right now.
Okay.
When can we expect?
Or when we
certain
thought we were going to
Okay,
start?
so for right
Yeah.
now, and I can come up with actual dates and send them to you, but right now, if we get a go-ahead, then I can get a contractor under an IDIQ contract to go ahead and come in and look at this, get it priced right away, say in 2 weeks, and we could potentially get him under contract in 2 or 3 weeks. And then he could get started. Like I said, probably maybe 2 months construction time, and then that would be ready for him to start moving kennels in and dogs in. The other project, like I said, we're probably looking at 30 days before we can wrap up construction documents. We may go the IDIQ contract again, and we may bid it, but either way, we're probably talking about, what are we today, May, the end of May? So the end of July, 1st of August, before we start construction.
Is there, go ahead, Lucy.
I just have a quick question. Make sure that I got this right. So you said that it was going to take up to a year. They're going to be in the temporary shelter for about a
Well,
year?
no, we don't think it'll take that long, but just in case, if, construction issues come up, plus they're talking about a phase 2, and they could potentially use it if they need to keep using it for whatever other reason. Morgan could probably answer that a little better. But we figured it'd be better to have it where they can use it even beyond construction. I don't think it's going to be become a permanent shelter, but again, Morgan can answer that.
Does this reduce our capacity at all? Because we know every month we end up with capacity issues. So in this process and this timing, do we reduce capacity?
A little bit.
What's a little bit?
Well, say 20 dogs.
Well, that's a lot.
Well, it is when you're the dog, yeah.
Yeah.
I think Morgan feels comfortable that she can work with that number and find shelters. Morgan, do you want to?
There's not a current recommendation to change the capacity from the 180 dogs that it currently is. In the temporary facility, we will have 96 kennels versus the 120 kennels, and in the new shelter, we'll have a few fewer kennels, like less than 10 difference, but we believe we still have appropriate housing. At 180 kennels, I have empty standing kennels still throughout the building in different isolation rooms. So as far as the capacity policy, as far as the capacity for care, that was defined based on staff time and at average staffing levels at 15 minutes per pet per day. So this process is not proposing any changes to the capacity policy.
I'm confused. So, because at the end of every month, we have this crisis. If we don't get these dogs adopted, then we have a problem. So I'm confused that we don't think this is going to be an issue if we go from 120 down to 96.
Well, and it's not at month end, it's a daily struggle to stay under capacity.
We have this issue regularly, so
Right.
reduction.
Because
would
the
seem to
capacity
be an
policy
issue.
wasn't set because of the square footage of the building or number of kennels. It was set based on staff time and standards of care as defined by National Animal Care and Control Association as an example. So I do have standing open kennels in the facility today because if I have small breed dogs, if I have puppies, if I have pets in isolation for quarantine or illness. So even with 180 dogs maxed out on the premises, I still have open kennels. The design and the construction of slightly more or less kennels does not change the capacity of care of staff in the ultimate, when the building is done.
So it's staff that determines when we have to go out to the public and say we need to get these animals adopted ASAP. It's not about kennels, it's about staff.
Right, that was the presentation made to council and the background of this. If we average this many minutes per care per day to meet an absolute minimum standard of care, if I have more than that many animals on the premises, they're not getting the necessary care for the day.
We might need to relook at those numbers to figure that out better, because the assumption was always, or my assumption was, that it's based off a number of kennels, and the kennels being full, so that created the need for adoptions, not staff.
I can bring back that presentation to y'all. That's what we spent a lot of time in, was the staffing.
I don't think we related the staffing conversation to number of kennels and adoptions. There was a disconnect there, and I'm sure everybody on this board understands there was a big disconnect.
I understand exactly what you just said. I didn't understand that we had the problem out there. I thought we had a maximum of 180 dogs. I didn't understand it was a staffing issue, so we need to come back and visit with that.
The 180 dogs is defined on staffing, that we set that policy based on staff's ability to care for dogs and cats. There's a capacity for cats as well.
But I am really confused. So, Karen, go ahead.
it's an interesting angle that the mayor has introduced, and we know, I believe that we know, all of us, that when you're at capacity, whatever capacity is, then you close intake, correct?
Well, we're always open for animals that are a danger to themselves or others.
Okay. But without that particular caveat, in typical operations, you're going to close intake when you reach your level of capacity. And so it seems like the strategic conversation that we need to have next is how can we ramp up adoption so animals are leaving faster and you reach that benchmark of capacity less often.
And I do think we have a whole slate of other solutions related to animal services, demands for service, and challenges this community is facing. But we just knew this construction project couldn't proceed without this agenda item today, considering the temporary facility.
Sure, we've gotten off on some tangents.
Well,
it's-
but we haven't. If we're talking about going from 120 to 96 kennels, that's a reduction in numbers.
True, you could.
So if you have a reduction in numbers and the number of kennels that you have, then that's going to impact intake.
Unless you consolidate animals. You said, I think already this morning, that in some cases there's more than one animal in a kennel.
Sure, litters of
Right.
puppies, as an
Yeah.
example.
Maybe it's not completely relevant, but I'm going to ask anyway. In the past, you had a program that enabled you to not employ, but utilize prisoners to help you accomplish certain tasks that were necessary. I would like a refresher on why that's no longer possible, because it seems like it could help you with the staffing issues, with some of the basic functions, cleaning, walking.
Sure. The city did have a contract with a trustee work camp. It was before my time at Animal Services that division used that contract. But after COVID, they did vacate the work group. I don't know if they've ever stood up that work camp again, but that resource is no longer available to this community.
But they
I can
use
look
it
at
for
it
putting
again,
up-
but
Well, but they use that for putting up Christmas lights, right, and for other things. But I don't know if it's the same camp. Go ahead, Tom.
So they use trustees at those stock shows. I'll tell you the history where we're dealing. But there's different ones, whether they're city, county things. And a lot of that depends. You can have an immediate lockdown. There are times where you have a schedule, but quite often that schedule is not 100%. So it's very hard. And something like what Morgan was trying to do, if she had to have guaranteed those people on those days, it wouldn't be something you could lay the risk out for. So I don't know if that's the situation,
Yeah,
but
'cause
I
we
know
have
that's how it was with the stock show.
a minimum manning that we've got to meet. We have trained professionals that are aware of identifying disease and preventing the spread of disease. So it's not simply custodial work, it's animal care work and preventing bites and reducing bites. So we do invest in and recruit professionals. And about 30 days ago, we were fully staffed. We have one vacancy right now. So it's not, we believe that the best way to care for animals and improve their chance of adoption, going back to their owners, partnering with the community, is by recruiting and hiring professionals, investing in their training.
I appreciate that and want to say thank you for that, because our mission as a city and your particular facility is to make sure that we are addressing safety and health issues. That's the primary focus of the operation. And we don't want services for non-pet owners to be negatively impacted by the fact that, by the transition, by the lack of staffing, and so forth. And so I'm referencing, of course, the ongoing concern of loose dogs. When you get a call, you want people to be able to, educated people that are properly vetted to address those things, so that the risk of bites or injury or your capacity to address health and safety measures is first and foremost in my mind.
Yes, Lucy.
Yes, I was going to ask you that whenever you do come back and you talk about, because I know we are not supposed to be talking about this But my concern is the fact that we have been getting a lot of reports with the dead dogs in the yards or in the street and all that. So if you can come back to us and give us a little report on that, or what solutions we might start to look at, something to that effect.
Well, Lucy, I think what we want is that ordinance relooked at, because we updated an ordinance, I don't know how long ago, 2 years ago maybe, but it doesn't matter how long ago. The point is, we need to revisit again and make sure that based off of what we know today, that we're comfortable with what the ordinance says, what it requires us to do, what it doesn't do, because it's creating too many problems.
Right.
And it's not working.
I want to come back to the item, which is prioritized listing of funding requests for animal services. And some of those things we can talk about at the end if you want to add something to the future agenda.
I think we just did that, added to the future agenda.
Yes.
So let me clarify.
Please go ahead, Tom.
Right now, we're talking about the cost to add on temporary kennel housing of about $120,000.
$120,330.
Right, and there's no way around it. I mean, if we have to remodel, we've got to go this path. Now, the question is going to be, how many kennels can we find for that and what we're working at, right? And that's kind of a moving target. We're going to try to maximize this as best we can, correct?
Right.
Cool, that's all I need to know. Thank you.
Well, the 120,000, Tina, you might want to come forward again, because we're going to need to find 120,000. So Tina, you can advise us on that. I don't know if we have something in the fund balance.
Bring a checkbook.
It's all leads back to finance.
It's always about the dollar.
Mayor, if I could, while she's on her way up, 120 for the building is all you're requesting on a temporary basis.
Correct. $120,000 will get us in the temporary facility so we can begin construction on the existing facility.
You're going to operate 2 buildings for the same price you're operating the 1 building now.
The
You don't need
construction,
additional staff, you don't need additional utilities.
there is a bigger discussion of funding requests.
I think today's discussion is about the temporary location and operating that temporary location. Is that correct? And so if there are operating costs that go with that facility, I think council needs to be left with the impression that 120 will prep the building, but operating 2 facilities may be more expensive than operating 1.
Sure.
Well, but part of the staff have to go with the temporary. So the staff that's in this building are going to be moved over to this facility. So you're not needing double staffing. You're moving staff to a different location for services, from what I understand. So
I'm sorry, what we were told to present today was the make ready of the temporary facility, the construction. So there is additional information. There are additional funding requests and needs, and will be at the council's pleasure when that can be heard.
For
but what's the
service,
time frame in terms of the need? That's the question, because if it's 120 today, what is it in 2 weeks, or what is it in 2 months?
Mayor, let me,
Yes.
if I may. So I looked at the agenda. Of course, I was out last week. I looked at the agenda. My concern was there's a lot of requests that were coming through that would be better based at a general fund workshop, budget workshop. And my concern was, what do we need at this point to really truly address the temporary facility? And that was my request, to ensure that we came forward to council and not, the initial number was $767,000. And that's to address the other facility and the temporary facility. I wanted the temporary facility addressed and what it would take to actually get the service running in there. Now, the cost associated with starting up the facility, the temporary facility, is $120,000, so that's a good question, Mike. And Mary, you did point out that you can move staff over, and so what is the logistics, the cost logistics-wise to actually open up the temporary facility is a good, fair question as well, because that's going to be a temporary cost. It's not going to be something that's permanent. My concern was, what I was seeing was a permanency, and that was a lot of money to be addressing with city council, trying to figure out how we're going to get that money. I wanted to
Are
make
they
sure.
hard costs or soft costs, or what costs are they? Because hard costs would
That's
be you're
correct.
never going to get it back. Soft costs, I'm going to spend it over here, I'm going to take it back over to the other facility. Is it $120,000 that once it's spent, it's over, and none of that money or what that money bought moves back to the facility. It's just lost, well, it's invested money in a temporary facility, but it will not translate back to the animal shelter.
Fair question, Mayor. And basically, what Mike is asking is, so it's $120,000 to get the facility prepped and up and going. But the other costs, which would be temporary costs, would be the assistance of staff that would have to be there. There could be more staff that would have to be hired temporarily, those type of questions. But again, I didn't want to sit here at a city council meeting addressing a big item that quite frankly should be discussed in the budget workshop. Now, to get the temporary facility up and running, that is my concern. What is it going to take to make that happen? $120,000 to prep the facility, and what are the costs connected with that as far as staffing?
Tapping your budget experience, can you easily divide the discussion for us and talk about what is necessary on a temporary basis and what you have talked about in your request as a change in your ability to provide service on an ongoing basis?
Well, I think, Michael, to your point, okay, so it's $120,000. How does those costs break down?
Well, the 120 is all about the facility. What we're talking about above that would be, for example, paying utilities on 2 facilities. Her budget should, the project budget probably should maintain some capacity to be able to maintain the temporary facility while construction exists on the.
Michael, that's what I was asking for. When we were talking about the temporary facility, what will it take to get that up and going? So all those things have to be taken into consideration as well. So it's not just a hard cost of $120,000. It's what else is it going to take to really open up that temporary facility? And that's the discussion I wanted to have today.
And I apologize because I didn't get that clarity from you. So what we believe would keep us in service would be a building maintenance technician for $40,000. That is the annual cost of that person. And for a project to last a year, we would expect that full cost of $40,000 salaries and benefits. At the end of that project, and we're not standing up 2 facilities anymore, we can reassess. Can that job go back? We had also proposed $72,000 in a part-time crew to stand up and operate 2 facilities, as well as the benefit or the utilities. So $72,000 in temporary staffing and utilities. So at the end of the project, those costs would not be needed on an ongoing basis.
So it's 200, so it's 100, the numbers, in addition to the number request, the ask today, there's an additional 72,000?
For shelter staff and utilities, and $40,000 for building maintenance tech.
So that total is what, Michael?
That's 330 something,
232, I think.
including the 120?
120 plus 40
72.
plus 72, I think is 232.
It's like
Did I-
no,
So that's a much different number.
220.
120 plus 40 is 160, plus 72, I think is 232.
Correct.
And so the question would be the time. I'm sorry, Mayor, I'm missing something that you're saying.
No, I'm just saying that we came forward today with 120,000 requests, right? And now we're at 232?
Well, the impression they got from our discussion was that it was all about the building. And I think Daniel's point is, no, it's about the temporary facility and the temporary expenses which go with operating that facility. And so,
But if that's over and above any numbers that's currently in the budget, the ask is bigger than 120 is the question. And that's what we're saying is, when you're here to ask for additional funds to do the temporary facility, we would expect it to be inclusive of all dollars, all issues of expenses that will be needed, money needed to accomplish this temporary facility.
yes, ma'am, but she got the impression that we were only talking about the building. And that's why I asked if she is tuned up enough on those other expenses, could she talk about them now? And so I agree, it's not just about the building And I think Morgan has some more information to talk about, not just the building itself, but the operation of the building and the splitting of the operation into two locations. And so she said, I need some staff, and that would be on top of the 120. Is that all do you think you will need? Do you think you can fit everything else into that?
During the construction, those are the 3 items needed.
Okay. And then the ongoing question would be service levels, like the dead animal pickup service. That's the kind of thing I think Daniel was saying, that needs to be part of the general fund discussion. That's not about this project, that's about the ongoing services.
Yeah, I'm just talking this project, what is the ask for this project? Not the budget for 24, 25, but this project, what is the ask? Because it's obviously not 120.
Yes, ma'am. 232 is the running total at this point.
All right, so that means Tina, you've had some time to count your dollars.
So if this is a council priority and you direct us to do so, we'll work with Daniel to identify a funding source, probably through savings in other areas and/or one-time funding sources.
It's not about it being a priority for us. What it is about we're doing this. And it's a necessity. This isn't a question about whether I like it, you like it, or somebody else doesn't like it. It's about this project is ongoing. We've already said we're going to do this project. What are the dollars and where do we find the dollars? And you're going to tell Daniel to go find the dollars.
I will take that direction and we will do so.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
What'd you say?
I said we could do a GoFundMe.
I may have to do that.
Yeah. Oh, excuse me, Tom?
Looking for a motion right now?
No, because we don't have action to take because we don't know where the money's coming from.
Okay.
So they're going to have to go back and bring forward the source for the revenue.
Gotcha.
Yes, Larry?
For Mr. Torres, when this subject first surfaced, there was concern about the existing utilities in that structure, water, sewage, electricity. Have those problems been overcome?
The only issue is electricity. They are going to have to replace the transformer and increase the amount of electricity there. The problem is that the facility next door tapped into it and they're using some of that. So the capacity that they thought they had, they don't have. So we're going to have to increase the transformer, and that's part of the delay that we've had over the last 2-3 months.
The plumbing issues were all part of the renovation we were doing out there. So the plumbing was to be a part of this
Correct.
$1.6 million upgrade.
Correct. Yeah, the plumbing issues, we're redoing the trenches completely. Right now, they're floor drains that are, they're undersized, they're broken in a lot of places. So we're just going to saw cut, take all those out and put in trench drains, which are easier to maintain, much more efficient. And of course, the HVAC, we're replacing the HVAC, the whole building.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Okay, so we will move on to item C, discussion and possible action on Chapter 8, Article 8.10, parking vehicles on unimproved surfaces of the Code of Ordinances. Well, this is another hot topic.
We have public comment. Please don't stand behind.
Is there public comment? Well, we didn't take any action on that item, so.
There's
but
still
we
public
can-
comment on every item.
We are opening up for public comment. On item B, yes.
Yes, ma'am. Jamal Shumpert, single member, District Number 2. I'm reading this. It says discussion and possible action on prioritized listing of funding requests for animal services made by Neighborhood and Family Services Assistant Director. She did exactly what you guys asked for. I don't understand the hostility given towards her. I'm going to move on from that and just focus on what's needed for the citizens. Your leash law is restrictive for your dogs. So your dogs are running around because you can't leash them up more than 2 hours.
We need to stay
Oh,
on
it-
topic. You can't talk about anything. You need to talk about funding.
Funding? Oh, okay. Yes, well, on topic is $276,000 for 2 additional officers. I think the problem you have with having so many dogs still in there, always having to be adopted, is because you don't train them. There's no incentive to adopt a dog. It's like, hey, pick this dog up, feed him, hopefully he doesn't tear your shoes up, tear your house up, poop all over your yard and your house. If you have people there to train them, it will be good. And as far as using wards of the state or of the county, I guess to groom and do them, people may be okay with that, but I don't think I'm fine with them not getting paid to do that. Just based off being able to see sunlight, because they're being restricted in a cage. Some of these jails don't even have AC. Ours do, thankfully, but some of them don't. And as far as funding, as the topic Ms. James said, hey, you've given out a lot of tickets to people. How about you offer them an opportunity to volunteer to pay off their tickets at the shelter? Thank you.
Thank you. There was no hostility towards Morgan. The question was about what is the ask, and there was a difference in the ask and the reality. We were trying to get to the bottom line of what is the ask, and there was not clarification in terms of how broad that ask was going to be. It was not about Morgan. She did what she was asked to do. Okay, item C, discussion possible action on Chapter 8. Article 8.10, part, I've already read this once, so sorry, Bob, I'm not going to read it again. You're okay?
Good morning. Council requested that we look at our parking ordinance and come back with a recommendation to either change or eliminate parking in the front yard. Our legal department did some research on ordinances in several cities and to see what they do. The research showed that Waco, Abilene, and San Antonio specifically prohibit parking in residential yards, while other cities like El Paso, Denton, Garland, Amarillo, and Lubbock don't address the parking issue specifically, but they have their own issues they deal with. Turns out that very few cities, if any, allow parking in the front yard like we do. We're kind of unique. Here's a reminder of the exceptions to parking in the yard. It must be on an improved surface, or a vehicle must be screened from public view with a fence that conforms to the zoning ordinance. There are additional exceptions. While the current ordinance allows parking in the front yard if the street is 36 feet wide or less, that's called an additional exception. We are recommending that we limit those additional exceptions to these three: recreational trailers and RVs with the proper setback, with a valid handicap license plate or mirror hanger, and the third one would be parking in the rear yard as long as it is not adjacent to a street right-of-way and the street is 36 feet or less. We believe that these additional exceptions provide relief to those living in very narrow streets, but helps maintain neighborhood standards at the same time. If council is comfortable with these three changes, we can come back with an amendment to the ordinance at a later date. So open for discussion.
Well, the one issue I want clarified with these things is we get lots of phone calls on someone has a boat in their yard and it doesn't have a license plate. Someone has a car in their driveway that doesn't have wheels on it. Somebody has a car that doesn't have tags on it. So the question mark is, how is that addressed in the current ordinance or on these recommendations here? Because that's the thing I hear over and over again. There's water in the boat, mosquitoes are being hatched, whatever, however mosquitoes grow. We need to understand those clarifications. That's one question I have, and I'm sure council has some other questions. So talk to that issue.
Yes, ma'am. That is actually specifically addressed in the junked vehicle part of the ordinance. That has nothing to do with this part. This is strictly parking on the yard. Regardless, we would assume that if you're going to park in the yard, in this case, in the backyard, your vehicle is not a junked vehicle. If it is, we would address it through that ordinance. So this is specifically addressing the parking situation.
Lucy?
Hi, Bob. So I have a question for you. Back over in Pauline, the streets are pretty wide, but there's these 3 trucks. They're regular trucks, but they don't have enough room for all 3, so they get the 2 in the driveway and then 1 across in the front yard. That is not legal, is it?
It is if the street is 36 feet wide or less, they can park in the front yard, and that's what's causing the problem. It becomes very chaotic. You'll have a house with 4 or 5 cars on the front yard in all kinds of directions, and it causes an unsightly situation. That's the concern we have, and these changes would address that.
Okay.
Karen, do you have a comment?
Like I said before, I think we're the only city that we know of that actually approves and allows people to park and specifically allows them to park in the front yard. We couldn't find other cities that actually do that.
Mayor?
You have a look in your eye that says you have a thought you'd like to share.
I don't know whose hornet's nest we're going to stir up here, but anyway, I mean, I can think of 3 or 4 residents on my street alone that have a car in their yard, all right? I'm just saying it is what it is. I get it. I mean, there's parts of this city we'd certainly like if we could go and do like a line item veto and say this district can and this can't, but that's not fair. It's not right. It's got to be for everybody. But this one's going to meet, and me and Hebert talked about it yesterday with Daniel. It's going to get a lot of discussion. I mean, there's people beside me that have, basically a 1.9 acre lot, and their house is on half. They put caliche on a quarter of it to park their vehicles on, which basically does improve it, but if they don't maintain the caliche in about less than a year, it still looks like their yard. I would pray for Rudy, because Rudy would just be worn out on this thing. I get it. I mean, these things are unsightly. To me, the more unsightly thing is RVs and boats. I mean, a lot of these houses have backyards. They can go in their backyards. I have 2 extra vehicles. They go in my backyard. But when I had a son at home, me and my wife had a car in the front, and then he was parked where actually the garbage cans, go and pull the garbage cans. So was it technically part of the yard? Probably. I mean, this one's going to get a lot of visibility, and if you want to go down this path, we need to throw it up, and everybody needs to realize they're going to get some feedback. And I'd say it's more probably structurally from Lucy and Harry and I that are going to see the majority of the smaller lots, the tight lots, and it all goes down to the 36 feet or less of width, but we need to make sure we delineate between them and the commercial vehicles. Commercials have never been allowed to be parked out there. So that's just a little bit of me rambling here for a minute, and I'll cut it off at that. It shouldn't make it painful for everybody, but this one's going to be unique.
Harry?
Yeah, I have to agree with Tom. Rudy's going to be busy. I expect that Bob will have to come back to council to have some additional help here. But I live on a street that's 36 feet wide, and we've got a lot of those vehicles that are parked in the yards, but we do have some commercial vehicles too. Commercial vehicles on the street, especially those that are very narrow, makes it very difficult to traverse down that street. That's not a code issue, that is a police officer issue, is that correct?
That is correct.
I want to make sure that citizens hear that, because in a lot of cases, I get calls and say, why don't you have code compliance take care of that? I said, you need to talk to the police department on that. So anyway, I just want that out there so citizens know.
But again, this will provide an opportunity for them to move their car to the backyard instead of the front. That's all we're asking. That's the change. Right now, if it's 36 feet or less, they can park in the front yard. They can.
So we're saying that the change on unimproved surfaces will allow for recreational trailers and semi-trailers as well as RVs to be parked.
That's the current ordinance. We would not change that. That would conform to the setback requirements like they do now.
And that setback requirement is what?
It's 10 feet from the right-of-way from the street, and then 5 feet from the side boundary of the property.
A valid accessible license plate or mirror hanger, talk about that.
That would be someone who obviously has gone through the process of being identified as disabled, and they get the actual license plate or they'll have the hanger. At that point, they will allow them to get onto the front yard if they need to for accessibility.
Parking in the rear yard if rear boundary is not adjacent to a street right-of-way and lot only has access to streets having improved service of 36 feet or less in width. Talk about that in more detail.
Sure. That's for corner houses where you have a street, you have another street, and if you go by, if you're allowed to park in the back rear, it kind of causes that unsightly situation where we've been trying to avoid. So this will prohibit anyone from parking in the rear if you are in the corner lot, unless you have a fence. Remember, if you go back to the exceptions, that is, you can park in the yard as long as you have a opaque fence that's 6 feet high or 6 foot high, at least 6 foot high, and conforms to the ordinance. You can do that. So if you're in a corner lot, you basically you're going to be forced to, if you want to park in the back, you're going to be forced to put a fence up so people can't see it. That's what we're talking about. And that's already in the ordinance.
You want to go back and talk about the ordinance as it exists today?
Okay. Right now, it's these. The only difference between the current ordinance and this recommendation is that third bullet. In the current ordinance, it does allow someone to park in the front yard based on the width of the street. Then it has some language about curbs or no curbs, and it gets very, very convoluted. So we wanted to eliminate all that and reduce it to these three.
Is everyone clear, Tommy?
I have a question, Bob. In the bigger picture, I think this is the bigger picture question. Is this a solution looking for a problem? As opposed to, we really have a problem here? Is this something that your folks have to deal with consistently or randomly or seldom?
We do, I would say, we get about 2 or 3 a year, where, in fact, we have one, I think it's in Karen's area, where the individuals, they'll park 4 or 5 cars in the front yard, and you look at the rest of the neighborhood, and it's copacetic, it's meets standards, it's an eyesore, and people complain about that. Again, we're bringing this because council asked us to take a look at it. Do we get a lot of them? No, we do not. I would say we do have. Rudy can talk about how many we get every year, but I would say about a handful.
So it's I guess, in my opinion, based on that response, this is a solution looking for a problem.
It could be. You could consider that. Again, we're coming to you based on your request for us to look at it, and this is a solution.
Gotcha.
To eliminate that problem. If there's, but is the problem big? Probably not.
Mayor?
Harry, just a minute.
Yeah, just to Tommy's point, maybe not in District 1, but in District 3, it's a real problem. In District 4, it's a real problem. Problem has been that you really can't do anything about it because by ordinance, they're allowed to park there. So with this change, it will allow people to move those vehicles to the backyard. It will allow code compliance to educate. The police department will probably get a little busier because there will be some opportunities there for but the bottom line is in my neighborhood, in my district, and I believe in Lucy's district, where you don't have a lot of space and you've got teenagers, you've got a lot of vehicles, and they end up being parked in the front yard.
And by the way, just to reiterate what I just mentioned about complaints, I think what happens is a lot of those neighbors have accepted it, and they don't complain, they don't call in. Do they like it? They probably don't, but they just don't call it as a complaint. So the complaints may not be that big or that large a number, but there potentially is a problem there.
I consistently hear about the problems with the boats that are not legal, cars that are being worked on that aren't legal. I mean, I hear it as mayor. Every week I get a phone call about parking on the yard with vehicles that are not street worthy.
I do want to say that we did submit a request to legal to take a look at the junk vehicle language. So we will be coming back to you for a look at that ordinance to kind of review how we do our business for junk vehicles. May provide us more ammunition. Right now, it's very we rely on the state definitions. So we're going to try to nail that down a little bit to make it more clear. Give us more ammunition to be more proactive.
What's the state's definition of junk?
I would have to ask Rudy to come up here. He's probably memorized that.
With code compliance, that you wanted the definition of a junked vehicle?
Well, the state, because that's what you're saying you use as your guideline, I think.
That's right. A junk vehicle has to be visible from the public right-of-way. It has to be wrecked, dismantled, partially dismantled, or inoperable. That's the definition.
Because that's the thing I get the most complaints on are those vehicles or boats or cars that aren't legal on the street, if you will, and they're in the front yard. And every time it seems like when we go over there, somehow there's a reason why they're allowed to do it. And I think the public needs more information on why those vehicles or boats, whatever, are allowed to continue to be on that property, whether it's still parking, whether it's junk or not, it's still parking on unimproved surfaces.
So as far as boats, boats are, in the city of San Angelo, boats aren't considered junk vehicles. We only deal with sedans, pickups, and recreational vehicles sometimes become junk vehicles. But yeah, there are a lot of problems with the junk vehicles, and we do address them. One of the problems is trying to figure out which ones are wrecked, dismantled, partially dismantled. Those are easy to handle. The ones you're probably talking about are inoperable vehicles. How do we know they're inoperable? So our policy is look at the vehicle. If it's got flat tires, if it got weeds growing around it, if it's being used as storage, that may be an inoperable vehicle. So we address it that way.
Okay.
I do also want to point out that the state statute does allow vehicles to remain inoperable for 30 consecutive days if they're on private property. And these vehicles do need to have expired or no license plates to comply, which I think is one of the reasons they want us to look at it and tighten it up a bit.
Yes, yes, Karen.
No mention has been made about the quantity of vehicles that are allowed in any of the comments or conversation up to this point. So you referenced a complaint that came out of my district. It's in an area where the streets are more narrow, and it's not an example that fits Tom's explanation. Tom talked about his son parking his car adjacent to his house, one extra vehicle. But I think in this case, there are multiple extra vehicles that are not don't appear to be operational because they don't appear to have moved, and they're in this front yard and are now encroaching on a neighboring property where the house is vacant. So hence the question about quantity. How many are okay?
There is
5,
no
6, 12, 1?
We don't address that. There is no max.
How many
How many you can put on there, I guess.
Right.
No, there's no max on that. Yeah, especially in that area. Yeah.
Mayor, if I could.
Yes, oh, please,
Karen and I
Michael.
have been talking about a particular property in her area, and I believe if this were in place and those vehicles and the property complied with the law, those vehicles would be in the backyard, And I think it would be a considerable improvement to the appearance of that block.
Well, my concern about her specific project is their backyard has an open fence, and you could see everything in that backyard. So it would be a backyard of vehicles. So in that backyard, they probably could park how many vehicles? A lot. Define a lot. I don't know. It's a number.
Yeah.
A lot, many.
That, I think you're right. Opaque is the key there.
Right.
That if they want to do that, it's got to be opaque.
Well, you can certainly add that. You can add that if you want to park in the rear yard, you would need an opaque fence. You can do that. The problem is a lot of low-income families would have to put some money in for opaque fences, or they could come up with some really ugly fences that we don't control. I mean, congregated fence pieces and mismatched, and it would look worse than not having a fence at all. We run across that quite often. We can't do anything about that either because it is fence standing up. It's a fence. It's 6 foot. Nothing we can do about it. So we got to kind of be careful on requirements. So the question is, do you want to see vehicles in the back or vehicles in the front? That's really comes down to that question. Is it better to have it in the back? Well, I would assume probably. And that's what this would address.
Well, I want to hear last comments from Lucy, Harry, and Tom, because I think we all agree that that's probably where the largest issues and complaints come from. So I want their input on this and make sure that they are comfortable with and support this, or whether you think it's going to create more problems than you currently exist. So I'm going to start with Lucy.
Okay, so Rudy, you never gave us the number of how many complaints we get per year. Say for 2023, what was the number of complaints for people parking in their yard?
2023, you had a total of complaints, I'm sorry, let me back up here. 31 citizen complaints.
Okay, and what kind of excuses or what did they tell you the reasoning? Do they just park there because they can, because it's their property? You know, I'm just asking because, yeah.
Pay those property taxes.
The most common reason is they didn't know.
Oh, they didn't know.
They did not know that they weren't allowed to use their unimproved surface of their front yard to park. So a lot of them park right next to the driveway. A lot of them park perpendicular to the street, you know, but they didn't know, most of them.
Yeah. And I'm fine with this being changed. The thing about it is that I don't like the fact that people still park in their yards when the street is wide enough. And
that's what we want to add, the 36-foot width.
Because
minimum.
a lot of times they park in their yard just for the mere fact that they don't want to get hit by somebody at night that's coming flying by. So that's why they park in the yard. So that's what I'm saying. And a lot of the times they don't have a very nice yard. So they're like, I'll use it for my car. I did. I hope nobody heard me.
Harry, were you through?
I'm done.
Okay, so Harry?
Yes, I think this ordinance could make some difference, but I do believe that Rudy and his crew are going to be very busy. Now, Rudy said 31 last year. Well, the reason you don't have more than that is because they are allowed to park in the front yard right now. So neighbors will not call on neighbors when they know they're not going to get any action on it. So I think you will find that once this ordinance becomes law, that there will be considerably more, and there'll be some period of education. There's no doubt about that some people will say, well, I didn't know, but I think a lot of them do know and are just going to do it because it's my yard.
Tom?
I want to whisper too, Lucy. I don't know, and there's things about moving to, so like where I live, we have a front yard and a backyard, and then we have more property behind our maintained backyard that we still have to go by, whether it's, up and down SMD2, whether it's a horse stalls or a shop or anything like that. So you've actually got steps and phases that this affects. But it's never a bad thing if you're trying to clean up your city. I think when we boil it back down to it, I have some complaints north of the Spur Arena where people have 3 or 4 RVs or 5 in their backyard. I would love to see something that, and I don't know if that would, actually fall under the focus or the scope of what we're looking at here, but it's never a bad thing to try to make our city look better. And I get that. There's going to be growing pains. And some of these people may not be able to get into their backyard with their cars. And I don't know how you address that. I'm going to have to go knock on some doors and ask some questions. So I ask that we don't take action on it today, but say, go ahead and move it forward. Let's look at making our city better. And I would hate to see that in Santa Rita or in your area. Karen, I understand if you have a set of houses that comply and everybody has a standard that they've accepted up and down the street, and then you have one person that makes a bad show about it, that ruins it, and it makes it an eyesore for everybody. So I get that, but I think we should move forward with trying to improve it. I don't know how we go for that in structure, Brenda, but
Well, Tom, do you think that we should add to this how many recreational trailers or semi-trailers or RVs are allowed on any one property? Because it would sound like 5 RVs would be a lot.
So I think in consideration of time today, and there's other people waiting to get up here, let's say, hey, let's all put together some things and send them to Bob and say, these are things, I think we all have questions and a few bullet points, and we send to Bob and say, here's something, take a look at all of them and see which ones make sense and we can do. But yes, I would certainly like to do that.
Well, could we also ask, as we're doing that, to look at the junk vehicle portion of this ordinance as well? Because I think it needs to be addressed all in one vote if we could, Bob.
Mayor,
Inclusive.
the charter requires that we put separate issues and separate items, so they can't be voted on all at once. This
I
one's
thought-
almost ready to go. Junk vehicles is a separate ordinance, that's going to take some time.
It's not the same thing as this
No,
ordinance?
no, it's different.
ordinance.
So we have to address them separately. If you want us to
Okay.
hold this one to get junk vehicles ready, but this one's basically ready to go.
Well, Tom has asked that we not vote on this today.
Well, we're
Then
not
we-
voting on anything. We'll bring it back for 2 readings. We're just getting your direction on whether or not we should do that. So, Tom, you can
Yeah, that's
provide
fine.
your comments, and we can bring you back something for first reading that might be modified from what we've shown you today, and then,
That'll give us all ample time to get some questions in, if we have them.
Okay. All right. Any further comments for Bob while he's here at the stand?
Thank you.
Before public comment, yes. But we're open for public comment right now. Any public comment on this item? Okay, so we will move on to item D. Consider a resolution approving the 2025-2029 capital improvement plan for the city of San Angelo. Tina, and there's no dollar request here. Just a conversation.
Yes, and really, this is more of housekeeping. We discussed the capital improvement plan at the strategic workshop a few weeks back, and so this is just an item required by our charter whereby city council approves the CIP as presented.
I want to ask if, going forward, we can really relook at what constitutes a capital improvement plan. I think sometimes the dollars are too low and other issues, but that's for a future discussion.
Okay.
And we'll do that after budget session. But for now, we will consider the resolution approving the 2025-2029 capital improvement plan. Do I have questions from council for Tina at this point?
Move to approve as presented.
There's a motion, there's a second. Public comment, please. There are none, take a vote. All in favor of this resolution approving the capital improvement plan, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed, motion passes, resolution passes 7-0. Item E is first reading and public hearing of an ordinance amending the budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2023, and ending September 30th, 2024 for survey work at Fairmont Cemetery.
Thank you, Mayor. Tina Deersky, Director of Finance. This is an item Carl has brought forward whereby he would like to use some of his fund balance to provide survey work related to a fence, I believe, at the entrance of the Fairmount Cemetery.
Okay.
The amount is, I probably have a slide for you, I'm sorry. $7,325.
Carl, you want to talk about that? Just a few minutes of information?
The project, if you may recall, it's been a while, several months. We brought a resolution to City Council. The council adopted it to allow Friends of Fairmount to accept the removal of fence panels, to resell them, to do this project, to replace the fence along Avenue N of the cemetery and include a new entrance. And so this is related to that project.
So this is just the new entrance?
It would include a new entrance,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, questions for Carl on this item? All right, may I have a motion for approval?
So move.
Second by Lucy. Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
None opposed, motion passes 7-0.
Thank you,
We'll
Mayor.
move to item F. First reading and public hearing of an ordinance for PD 24-01, a request for a planned development zoning district with an underlying base zoning of low-rise multifamily, allowing for a transitional housing facility for women located at 4215 Armstrong Street. Aaron?
Good morning, Mayor. Aaron Vanoy, Director of Planning and Development Services. Good morning, City Council and Mr. Valenzuela. It's a pleasure to bring you this planned development project here at 4215 Armstrong Street. It is in District 2, Tom Thompson, and the Lakeview neighborhood. You see here on this image right there, this is an image of what's kind of the overhead right now. This used to be a nursing home facility that is now going to be repurposed and used as a transitional housing facility for women. And I think that's a good project for our community. So you can see that we are going to do it under planned development, which gives us some ability to do some conditions, and we'll go over those in just a few moments. So this is going to be rezoned from single-family residential to a planned development for the low-rise multifamily because it is a transitional housing facility. So again, you can see here on Armstrong as it's heading north to 50th. On the east side is Ranch and Estate, large lots, and then behind this property to the west are smaller single-family lots, and then of course Lakeview is just behind that area back there. A couple of street views here of the facility. They are going to be using half of the facility for the transitional housing. We did send out 21 mailed notices. We did not get any back in from the area, but we did have people come to Planning Commission that did have some concerns, and we did discuss with them what the items were as far as the conditions, and they understood the project a little bit better. Apparently, this property has had different people living in and out of it, some controlled, some uncontrolled. Now there's an actual nonprofit organization that's coming in, wants to take control of the building and actually run a true program out of there. So they did have some rationale looking at this. RS1 zoning is certainly behind this area. Along Armstrong Street, being a minor arterial that comes into our community, that underlying vision plan right there is neighborhood center. And so this being a RS1 to an RM1, utilizing some low-rise multifamily would actually utilize that same existing structure that's there. It lost its legal non-conforming status when it became vacant for a number of years after the fire, and so this is the way to get it back to being legally conforming, as well as having some conditions on activities that can happen there. We do know that there is a community need for transitional housing for women, and it would serve this area well. The building, of course, have changed hands several times, but we do think this is one way to get some stability for that piece of property. We are recommending approval, changing from the single-family residential to a planned development with the low-rise multifamily at 4215 Armstrong Street, with the subject of 4 conditions: that they obtain and comply with all necessary building permits and receive a change of occupancy. Since it's been vacated for over 2 years, they do have to have that inspection to come in and change their occupancy. And then we put in here, and this is just kind of the brief about no services to be performed on site. One of the concerns was doing drug and alcohol treatment there, and in our zoning ordinance, that's a different category. And so we're making sure that they're not doing that there. They're doing that at a different site if any of their residents need that. If they were to add lighting, it would be shielded downward to help minimize any of that light trespassing over into the RS1 districts, as well as people that are driving on Armstrong at night. And they must provide and maintain appropriate parking. They do have good parking there for the amount of rooms that they're looking at. I believe, and I will have them confirm, but I want to say it was going to be 8 living areas that they would have, so 8 total residents. They may give us an update on that exact number, because some of the building has not been, it's just a large storage space. They could expand in the future, but right now they're looking at that for their transitional housing.
You said that only half of the building was going to be used. So is that the
Yes.
half that's going to be storage?
Yes, ma'am. So this area up here is currently storage right now. They have future plans that they could finish that out in the future. If their program continues to be successful and they have a need, they could expand that out. I think they would be allowed to do that under the planned development that we currently have, which would be the low-rise multifamily. And so this would be just like having an apartment complex or something that you actually have the apartments are inside and you go into each individual apartment.
Questions? Tommy?
How did this come from Planning Commission to us? How did it vote?
They did approve it unanimously, and I checked with our staff this morning if it was 7-0 or 6-0, but we believe it was 6-0 when we would look back on the one of these members had to step out. And so it was a 6-0 affirmative vote for the plan development.
Thank you.
Tom, it's in your district. You want to talk?
I remember when I came into the council meeting to bring this up.
That's the same
It's all in
problem I
green.
had.
All right.
It's that
All right.
solar thing happening.
Exactly, it's the solar flare, anyway. No, it's, the purpose of the project, when it came in, it's transitional, the housing, everything fits. It fits the neighborhood. If anything, after discussions today, they could probably sell parking spots over there, all right? Everything looks good for this thing to move forward. I don't see any objections, so I mean, if nobody else has any questions, I would move to approve as presented.
I will second that.
Second by Lucy. Public comment.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Maria Mejia, Executive Director of Concha Valley Turning Point. We are the agency, the nonprofit that is looking to go ahead and make this a women's transitional housing. We have been around since 2009. We started as a part of Rest Street Ministries, branched off, they're still our sister company, but we were trying to address other needs as well as not just the food insecurities. We stand before you not just to ask for support for approval, but also for support from this city. This is a need, a great need in our community. It is not only going to help house women, it's going to help the domino effect is the children as well, gaining custody of their children as they're working through it. As Erin said, in the conditions that are set, we do not provide services direct like counseling. We collaborate with ADAC, we collaborate with Children's Advocacy Center for parenting. We let the professionals those agencies do what they need to do. We do transitional, we do reentry, and just try to set them up for self-sufficiency. So if you have any questions for me.
So they live there, and then you bring counselors in, or you take the ladies to counselors or to other services that might be needed?
Correct. So they live there. That's a safe haven for them to be, whether they're fleeing. Not everybody is domestic violence. Not everybody is substance use disorder. Some of them have some mental health issues that have not been addressed. So we work with, if they're graduating from ADAC, Journey Recovery Center, we partner with them very well, and it's a continuum of care. We work with parole, anybody paroling back into Tom Green County if they need a safe place to be, while we help them acquire housing, get jobs, get IDs, get all of that, and move into transition into the next phase of their life. Yes.
I look forward to having some great success stories.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Question, go ahead.
Yes.
Harriet, so do they work, well, do you have anybody that will be moving there that will be working?
Well, hopefully 100% of them will. Yes, ma'am. Unless they have a disability, yes, they will be working. And we go out in the community. We have some very good relationships with employers in the town to help them do that. You know, one of the things that, and I appreciate your question, Lucy, is because when someone is coming, either it's homelessness or coming fleeing an abusive relationship or coming out of Journey Recovery Center, sometimes they don't have the documents to get a job. So while they come to us, we partner, like I said, with Goodwill and other agencies. United Way has been very great working with us on that as well. We'll get them their IDs, everything that's needed so that they can get a job. So we do not transport them at this time. We are trying to write grants so that we can have another. Right now it's myself, part-time employer. We have our assistant director who's also part-time, and everything else is done through volunteers. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much, and I wish you well.
Other questions or comments from anybody?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Larry?
I don't know what your current capability is to meet needs. Can you expand on where you are now and your expectation of how many families and women are going to be aided by this?
Well, I'd like to give you, right now we have 4 women there. Whenever we started working through everything with the city, we were allowed to have 4. This building was being used as transitional housing for over 5 years. We came in, the owners are very familiar with our nonprofit. We've been doing men's transitional housing, even men with children, for quite some time, for over 10 years. I've been with the agency 10 years, with the nonprofit 10 years. So to give you a direct number, it depends how long they have to be there. We have one young girl that is looking to move in after all of this is approved and we can raise capacity. She's in high school at Lakeview, and she's been couch surfing. So, yeah.
Other questions or comments? Okay, so may I have a motion for approval? Lucy, motion to approve?
Have we already done that?
Yeah.
I
Tom
already
made
did
the
that.
motion.
Oh,
Okay, I'm
made
going
a
to second your motion.
I know, but
Y'all fight for it.
we did all of that.
We're already done.
I shouldn't have
We're
opened
done.
it up
She
for a
had it,
motion.
she had it even before she came up.
Oh, darn.
My fault. I'm
Can I 30?
redigesting this. Okay.
We're good.
Thank you. Thank you. Other public comment? Would anyone else like to come forward?
Jamal Shumpert, single member, District 2. I would say they do what they say they do. I had a friend who went to jail for quite a few years. He got out, came to San Angelo because I told him there were jobs here. It's nice people here. They helped him out. Now he's in California with his family. He's doing good. So yeah, you will hear good stories coming from them. I don't know them personally, never met them, but thank you.
Thanks for that comment. Further public comment? Please come forward. You're just fine.
I just want to say that I appreciate
Say your
you guys.
name,
Oh, my name
where
is
you
Irma
live.
Rojas. I am actually an alumni to Concha Valley Turning Point. I am currently on parole. I have been clean for 5 years. I got out of prison 2019, and I have been giving back since then because Miss Maria and the program has really, really helped me. I have been in my current job for 5 years. I'm actually now on the board to Concha Valley Turning Point. I actually work part-time for the Concha Valley Public Defender's Office. I do the peer support for them, and it's just been a great journey for me, and I think that you guys are going to hear plenty of successful stories because that's what we're here to do, to help, to give back to our community. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks for sharing.
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Kelly Kovar, and I'm a retired parole officer. Actually, Miss Lucy used to be my boss. And the way
What do you have to say, Lucy?
the way I
Talk to
became
you after the meeting.
the way I became familiar with Concho Valley Turning Point is Miss Lucy made me go there, and she made me do a program. It was a program that was a new parolee orientation. I fell in love with Concho Valley Turning Point, and I am retired now from the San Angelo District Parole Office, but I continue to volunteer with Concho Valley Turning Point. I can sit here for days and tell you the success stories of how Concho Valley Turning Point has touched lives, has made a difference in people's lives, not only the in my case, the offender, but their families and actually their employers, which serves the community. And I just really appreciate the fact that y'all are going to approve this. You have no idea. You just have no idea what you're doing. And I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
My name is Adrienne McCravey. I'm an LPC. I'm a board member at Concho Valley Turning Point and also a volunteer. I worked for about just under 4 years at Roy K. Robb CRTC, and that's how I became familiar with Concho Valley Turning Point. When we were looking at places to transition the men from our CRTC into transitional housing, the number one place to go to was Concho Valley Turning Point, because it did provide such a strong base, a strong support system, and a strong peer-led support system for the men to build successful lives instead of returning to unsuccessful lives. One of the things that I do at Turning Point now is I facilitate the anger management class, and we have the class for people from probation, from parole, from CPS, and so we have an impact on the community that way as well. We're looking at opening classes once we get fully up and running at the Women's Haven as well. And as Maria said, we do partner with as many other agencies as possible. One of the things that we found that when I was working at CRTC was a great need for financial literacy. And so we've partnered with Galilee, and Galilee has put on a financial class for the men at the Turning Point, well, for anyone who chose to attend, because all the classes are available not just to the residents, but to the community. So we try and serve and fill needs we don't try and duplicate, we just fill needs. So, but yeah, it's a hand up, it's not a handout. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Would anybody else like to share today? All right, well, we have a motion and a second. We've had public comment, so we'll take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes overwhelmingly 7-0. We will now move into our close. Yes, sir.
Do you think we could get a schedule on that anger management class? Just kind of want to know. I got a bunch of looks when that happened. I was like, okay. I'm with you. I need to go to all of them. I need to go to all.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going into our closed session, executive session under the provision of Government Code Title V, Open Government Ethics, Subtitle A, Open Government, Chapter 551, Open Meetings, Subchapter D, exceptions to requirement that meetings be open under the following sections. A, Section 551.072, deliberations about real property regarding 1, all of Block 1.98 acres of E.S. Kirby, 2, 9.622 acres out of Abstract 0111, Survey 0320, and Item 3, 1.22 acres out of Abstract 0111, Survey 032. We'll be back when we're finished. It is 11:23 a.m. We are calling this closed session to an end, and we are going to have Lucy Gonzalez make an announcement.
This is a motion to purchase 11.822 acres from Roosevelt Kelly, excuse me, as presented on the agenda in the amount not to exceed $325,000 and authorizing the city manager to negotiate closing costs and execute all related documents.
Second.
Second. Any public comment? All right, we'll take a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Consider approving various board nominations. The Animal Shelter Advisory Committee, Chrysanthemum Cohen for SMD 1 to first term ending January 2026, and Roger Horton, SMD 4, to an unexpired term ending January 2025. May I have a motion for approval of those names for those,
So moved.
for that board? Motions, a second, please.
Second.
A second by Tommy. Any public comment? With none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Announcements and consideration of future agenda items. 1, consider scheduling August 2024 City Council meetings, August 8, 2024 City Council meeting, and vote on proposed tax rate. 2, August 16, 2024 special meeting, budget and tax hearing, first reading. And then August 19th, 2024 City Council meeting and budget and tax adoption as a second reading. It looks like you guys have information for us.
We do. We just wanted to quickly make an introduction to City Council of a couple of promotions. I'll introduce, oh, you go ahead.
So I made her opening necessary by hiring Kim Hawley as our new Assistant Director of Human Resources and Risk Management. Kim is fantastic, as you all know, and so she's going to do a great job in this role.
Well, at least we get to keep you.
Yes, yes,
That's
very
key.
thankful for that.
So, that's
Absolutely.
great.
And she and Jonathan are kind of doing double duty. Jonathan also promoted to the budget manager position following Kimberly. And so they're both kind of doing dual roles right now until we get through the budget process so we can get everything squared away for this year. But I think they'll both do a fantastic job in their new roles. So we're thankful to have them both.
Congratulations. Any issues with the dates that I just read?
Flew through those, so let's.
Yes, can we go back?
Well, yeah, they're on your thing,
Oh,
right?
okay.
They're on your agenda, so look at them on your agenda, right?
August the 8th is
So
the
you
city
have
council
August 8th.
Which is a Thursday.
Which is a Thursday. City Council's on that, the 6th, so
We
we could.
If you'd like, we could propose to move from the 6th to the 8th.
We should, so we don't need two different dates. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we thought was consolidating
Yeah.
those dates.
Okay, so we're moving it from the 6th to the 8th.
That's
Yes.
council and,
Yes. And the
And
city
budget?
council meeting on.
Yeah, the
proposed
reason for
tax
moving
rate.
that is based on the dates that we have to adhere to for the state requirements. And so that city council meeting, the reason we need it then is to vote on a proposed tax rate.
So then the 16th one, we can't consolidate with the 20th, right? The 20th would be the normal city council meeting.
From our perspective, there's no reason you couldn't combine them, so.
Let's do
No,
that. So,
no. Sorry, let me
We can
get,
combine the 20th to the 19th.
oh, Kimberly's saying we could combine the 20th
And the 19th.
to the 19th.
The
What?
19th is our legal.
You mean from the, she's talking about August 20th.
Right, so if we want to move the regular
Okay. So
we
instead of
have to do
Tuesday, we
to
have it
the
on that
20th.
Monday.
Okay, so we would move the 20th to the 19th.
Thank you.
so the 19th is going to be a council and
Budget.
And the budget
Council,
tax.
and it will be the final
Budget
budget
tax.
and tax adoption, the second reading.
And then the 16th, we have to leave as it is, or it cannot be
Yes.
combined with the 19th as well,
It cannot be combined,
even though the 16th is a Friday.
correct?
You gotta have
Because
two
you have to have a
separate
first and
hearings.
second reading of that ordinance.
So we
have to
could,
maintain that.
Yes.
we could do it some other time during that week, but it does have to be a separate meeting so that you can have the first and second, like Heather said.
Well, Tom, you travel more than the rest of us.
But
Would-
I try to leave town, as long as we waited on one end of the week or the other, I can travel those other 3-4 days.
Okay, so let's leave it on the 16th, and that leaves And that way you'd be here on the 19th too,
Yes,
so
ma'am.
that leaves
That
that.
works. That's the best idea.
16th
Okay.
and 19th, yeah.
That works good.
Doesn't impact you, okay.
Okay, so we got the 8th, the 16th, and the 19th, correct?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay, with that, a
Oh,
motion for.
and
I'm
just,
with
just a
Sharon.
quick
Wait.
reminder, we have the budget workshop on June 18th. No, yes, June 18th council meeting, after the council meeting. So we're still good with that, everyone? Okay.
Yeah.
And then July 16th, we'll have the general fund workshop after the council meeting.
That's right.
Okay,
Right.
okay.
Move
That's
we
all we have.
adjourn, Mayor.
A motion, second, a vote, all in
Aye.
favor? Say aye.
Aye.
We are officially adjourned at what time? 11:28.